Welcome to another Nature-Trek podcast where we bring wildlife to you in your living room. In this episode, Colombia, birds, beers and life in lockdown with Robin Smith and Andy Tucker.
Well, welcome to the latest Nature-Trek podcast. I'm Andy Tucker, General Manager at Nature-Trek. My colleague Sarah has been doing a great job of these podcasts so far. But I'm stepping in today and I'm delighted that my good friend and ex-colleague Rob Smith has joined me on the line from Colombia. Hi Rob, good to see you.
Hi Andy, yeah, good to see you.
Let's just set the scene. As I said, we're ex-colleagues in Nature-Trek and now you handle some of Nature-Trek's ground operations in Colombia. We were colleagues from about 2012 to 2017. You set up Nature-Trek's Tailormade division, which is still going strongly, and you emigrated to Colombia. Pick up the story.
Yeah, so I met a Colombian, Claudia, my wife now, and after much deliberation, we decided that we'd give Colombia a crack and come over here and set up a wildlife tourism operation. So we headed over here in 2017, and we've been going strongly since then, up until recent events, of course.
Yeah, well, before we get on to life in lockdown and some of your local wildlife sightings, tell me a bit about how you slotted into Colombian life, because certainly a lot of our clients in Nature-Trek will think of Colombia, and the thought that springs to mind is lots of the difficult times that we've had over the past 30, 40 years, and basically no one's been able to visit until about 5 or 10 years ago. But a lot of work's been going on in Colombia in the last 5 or 10 years to change that international reputation. And indeed, the invitation open now, isn't it, to travel around and see some of Colombia's wonderful bird life. How do you see modern life in Colombia?
Yeah, I mean, it very much depends on where you are in the country. So Bogota and Medellin, the two largest cities in Colombia, are very much metropolitan centers and very similar to other forward-facing cities in the world. Great food and very nice places to be as far as cities go. Of course, there are poor areas in Bogota, especially. There's the south is a poor area in the city, and there's still a lot of work to be done to bring the gap to sort of narrow the gap of the poorer side of the country. But by and large, if you were to compare and contrast Colombia to the times that you mentioned before, particularly in sort of the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, things are it's a world away from those times. And living here is fantastic. Friendly people, welcoming people, and lots of opportunity here. Both in the cities and outside.
Certainly when I was in Colombia last in 2015, what struck me was that really warm welcome that you just mentioned, together with vast tracts of absolutely unbelievably pristine habitat. What role does careful ecotourism play in modern Colombia's economy, do you think?
Well, it's vital. I think Colombia as a whole, right from the top down, see tourism and particularly ecotourism, birdwatching tourism, they see it as a vital element to progressing Colombia's economy and its the fortunes of its people. It's a fantastic way to bring a livelihood, particularly to those people that live in more remote areas of the country. Colombia is a huge country. It's roughly the size of Germany and France, let's say, combined. It's a huge country. So there's many people living outside the cities, and without tourism, their opportunities in many cases are quite limited. So birdwatching has been the sort of, the birders have come, some of the earliest tourists were birders looking to see all those species that were kind of off limits back in the day. And they're bringing tourism dollars and pounds to these to folk out in the countryside, so which is fantastic. And aside from wildlife tourism, there's also a growing and robust sector which is more sort of focused on culture. Coffee tourism is also very, very strong here, of course, and the coffee tastes excellent. So yeah, in terms of it's really a vital part of the economy. There's absolutely no doubt about that, and there's a lot of initiatives right from the top down trying to push tourism and push Colombia's reputation forward in terms of being a go-to place for the world's population.
Well, certainly you and I will be united in wishing that international tourism was back on the agenda as soon as possible for our respective livelihoods, and so many more people, as you've just been mentioning there, who depend on it. Just a word of life in lockdown in Colombia. I know you keep a very close eye on British news, but tell us and our listeners a bit about life in Colombia. How seriously have you been taken? Are you allowed out? Some of the local wildlife you've been enjoying?
Yeah, so Colombia caught things pretty early because we had the benefit of seeing, particularly seeing things occur in Europe, and really the COVID-19 crisis was kind of picked up on relatively early here. So the lockdown, I think, was enforced on around the 20th of March. And it was stringent restrictions were put in place. And it seems, touch wood, that for the most part, they have caught it early. Death rate is, the numbers of deaths are low. It's lower than less than 1,000 as it stands at the moment. So Colombia as a whole has fared a lot better than many of her South American neighbors. And in terms of lockdown, the government has put in place everyone has an ID card over here, and depending on whether the last number of your ID is a zero, is an even number or an odd number, that means you can go out at certain times, but you can only go out on your own. You can go out to do certain things. So you can obviously go and shop, you can go to the hospital, these kind of things. The challenge now, as everywhere else, is how do we come out of lockdown, and how do we start opening up the economy? Because sadly here, there's not the sort of perhaps the war chest that there might be in other more economically advanced countries. So for the folk that are particularly those that are working on they're out on the street selling empanadas, or they're doing jobs that really are a hand to mouth. Those people are really struggling now. So it's really vital that we get things back as soon as possible in a safe way, which is starting to happen now. So they're starting to open up parts of Bogota, and there is more activity out there. As far as we're concerned, we live just outside Bogota, and we're up in the hills. So we're up at about 2,600 meters, and we sort of live in an area that's predominantly farmland, actually. So we're very fortunate insofar as we have green space outside, and a garden that we can go out to and enjoy some bird life on a day-to-day basis. So we've had we've just kept an eye on what birds have been moving through. At the start of lockdown, we had all the migrants coming through, so we had Blackburnian warblers and scarlet tanagers and others coming through. They've all passed through now, so the migration sort of passed through as we were in lockdown, and now we just have the residents here, and there's a lot of species that are starting to nest. We've got nesting brown-bellied swallows, and we had some excitement a few days ago with a sawbill hummingbird in the garden coming to inspect some trumpet flowers, which was really nice. That's a nice one for the garden list.
That's the one for your garden list.
Yeah, I'm just hoping for the Andean condor to sort of float over the garden at some point, but that's not happened yet. Or perhaps, I don't know, black-chested buzzard eagle or something. We'll see.
You've got to have a trumpet condor there, I would have thought, drifting over at some stage.
Yeah, there's a breeding pair. There's not many about here in the eastern Andes of Colombia, at least around this area. But there is a breeding pair up in Chingaza, so you never know. You never know. That's just Chingaza National Park's just a couple of hours drive from our house. So who knows? Maybe one day.
I can tell you a feature of the podcast that Sarah's done for us so far is the interviewee has had a massive great bookshelf behind them racked up with natural history books. It seems to be a bit of a competition who's got the most impressive bookshelf. I think Tim Manning's winning so far, so I'm glad you haven't put me to shame in that regard. Just tell me, from a British naturalist point of view, I mean, you've done well in the UK if you see 400 species here in a lifetime. That, of course, includes many rare vagrants. How is it tuning into a country like Colombia where you've got well in excess of 1,300 species? That's just mind-boggling from a British perspective. It's not just the birds, of course, it's all taxa, reptiles, insects, plants. It's just mind-boggling diverse.
Yeah, so I think Colombia's list in terms of recorded species is around 1,900, and that's increasing all the time. They're describing several new species, and of course these are new species to science. These aren't sort of splits, and of course there are plenty of splits going on and considerations all the time. It's a nightmare, yeah. It's you know, I'd had some experience birding over in the neotropics before I came out here. I'd obviously been to Colombia before, and Peru and Ecuador and places, but I hadn't really ever travelled and birded in with a view to actually showing other people what the species are. So it was very much just see bird, ID bird. Whereas now leading tours and being the person that clients are asking what is that bird is adds a bit more pressure. So right from the start we sort of my aim was to just slowly build up my knowledge of the birds over here, and I started out with it's broadly. You can broadly split the species down the middle with Andean species and more lowland species. So you know that if you're birding in the Andes, then there's 900 odd species, let's say, that you're not going to encounter. So you can sort of compartmentalize those, and the tours that we started out doing were predominantly in the Andes. So it was a question of just getting to grips with the Andean species and their calls. And for me, I always bird with a local guide. I think that's vitally important for a number of reasons. First and foremost is I don't want to feel like I'm taking someone's livelihood from them. So when we have a group, I'll lead the group with a local guide. And as a team, we'll obviously work through a day's birding, and that takes the pressure off me a little bit as well, because they're generally speaking, there's some fantastic local young guides, up and coming birders that we like to work with, who have great ID skills and are great on their vocalizations, and I think that's been one of the great things for me, is that out on tour, I'm learning from them. And hopefully they're learning a little bit from me. So there's a bit of an interchange there of skill set, and slowly that's helped to get to grips with Andean birding. Amazonian birding is a whole different kettle of fish, and that's sort of the next challenge for me in terms of my birding, is to spend more time in Amazonia, and I'm looking forward to getting to grips with the treasure trove of species down in various parts of Amazonia in the eastern side of Colombia. So that's the frontier for me.
Great stuff. Well, when I asked you about that, I said Colombia's got well over 1,300 species. I did it a huge disservice, of course, because as you pointed out, it's got well in excess of 1,800 species, which makes it the most bird-rich country on earth. Well, I know why you've been in Colombia. Actually, although you've been focusing on the birding and running birding tours, you've made a special beeline, if you like, for some of the endemic mammals. Tell me a little bit about that story and what's got you involved in pursuing some of Colombia's endemic mammals.
Yeah, so there's a few drivers really. We felt that everyone well, not everyone, but Colombia as a birding destination is very much on the map. And it's an up-and-coming destination. There's still huge potential there from the birding side. I mean, Colombia in general is considered the second most biodiverse country in the world. So it's not just about the birds. There's lots of other wildlife here, and we felt that there was an opportunity to look for endemic mammals and rare mammals, and particularly we started focusing on primates. So we started wrecking some really offbeat locations that were in the sort of distributions of certain primates. So yeah, we sort of did our research and tried to figure out where those areas were, and started to develop some tour routes that could enable people to see these species that very few people in the world have ever seen. So to give a couple of examples, we targeted a species of monkey called a Kakita titi, which is a type of titi monkey down in the far south of Colombia. It's extremely endangered. There's anywhere between 250 and perhaps 400 individuals remaining in the wild. So we really felt that and these are areas, these really are sort of areas that really struggled in if you look back to 20, 30 years ago, these were desperate areas. And that's surely driven the pressure on this particular monkey. So we felt that not only is it very cool to go and see this really rare monkey, but it's also a really great way to get tourists to some new communities that desperately need a sort of an injection of anything really, of some sort of economic stimulus, and we just found that it was really fantastic taking clients down to these areas, because we were extremely welcomed. People, when we go back, every time we go back now, people are happier and they recognize us. And it's really been a fantastic project, because we feel that there's no real losers in this with these tours. And yeah, it's been good fun, and we've enjoyed looking for monkeys. I should say that my partner Claudia, her background is a marine biologist, and she studied fin whales for 8 or 9 years in Baja California. So her background is mammals, albeit marine mammals. She likes the birds, but it's the mammals that really get her going. So that was also an incentive for us. She was really keen to see fur rather than feathers. So that's a bit of the background there, and it's been really, really good fun.
When international travel opens up again, I'm sure you'd be loving to host some of our Naturek clients in our Colombia endemic mammals store, which you operate and guide for us. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Our Magdalena Valley birding tour, and also our Birds and History tour. Slightly different. Magdalena Valley, a traditional kind of fast-paced dawn to dusk birding tour, and our Birds and History tour, which you led for us in November. A bit of a slower paced affair, isn't it? With some nice feeding stations and a bit of Colombia's rich culture and history as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The Birds and Culture tour was the first group tour that we ran with Naturetrek, and again, I think that was a pioneering tour, because everyone was just focused purely on just going out and seeing as many species as they could, which for really keen birders, that's fantastic. But there's a whole other group of people that were coming over here and thinking, well, there's fantastic culture in Colombia as well, and so we had a chat with you and decided that it'd be a great opportunity to put together a mixed focus tour. So we spent time in Bogota, and we bird outside of Bogota, and actually we do a bit of birding inside of Bogota as well. But we also go and see the Gold Museum, which is one of the largest collections of gold anywhere in the world, and it's all these pre-Columbian fantastic artifacts. We go to the Botero Museum, which is Botero is Colombia's most sort of famed artist. We spend time there. We go and enjoy some of the sort of cafe culture that you'd probably whiz past if you were on a more fast-paced birding tour. And we spend time in the coffee region, again birding and enjoying some gentle hikes in beautiful landscapes. So we sort of combine birding and just taking things in. And we also go to some of the popular spots in the Andes like Rio Blanco and Nevado del Ruiz, where you can bird and at the end of the day sit in a thermal hot spring bath. And we finish up in Cartagena, which is one of the most fascinating cities, I think, in all of the Americas, with a rich history, and it's an absolutely beautiful, colourful city. And then the Magdalena Valley tour, as you say, is very, very different. We're really sort of focused on a suite of endemic and near endemic species that occur just in the Magdalena Valley. So to put that in context, Colombia, there's three arms of the Andes in Colombia. They break at the south, and there's an eastern arm, a central arm, and a western arm, and we're essentially birding between the eastern and the central arms of the Andes, and that sort of that area has a number of endemic species that are only found in that valley. And that's a 11 day tour, I think, and we do some extensions, some optional extensions, and one of those exciting extensions next year is going to be Mitu, which is one of these Amazonian birding gold mines, which I think 4 clients went to last year and had a great time, came back with an absolute burgeoning list of species. So yeah, very different to the birds and culture tour, but great fun as well.
Excellent stuff, Robin. Great. I'd just like to fire a quick series of questions at you, which I think people might find of interest. What's your next target in Colombia? Have you got an iconic species of bird or mammal in mind you haven't seen so far that you'd love to see?
I've never seen a Harpy Eagle, so Harpy's high on the list. Seen a few nests of harpies. I've been to some nesting sites and been there at the wrong time. And we were due to go and try and see one about now, actually, because there's a nesting harpy down in the south, and we were going to go and recce that area. So that was big. That's a big one on the list. I'm quite keen to try. There's a species of mammal called a pacarana, which I'm very keen to have a crack at as well. Very elusive, doesn't like people very much. And then there's stuff like the short-eared dog and bush dog, which, they're ghosts in the forest. So they're just a bit of a dream, almost a pipe dream, just hoping that one will drift past you one day.
It's interesting with the short-eared dogs in Amazonia. I think you and I shared a Facebook article on that recently. There's quite a lot of research and radio collaring going on with short-eared dogs. Such a fascinating animal. I saw one once in eastern Ecuador. Just a brief view, a fleeting view of one crossing the trail. Animal.
Yeah, they are. But they seem, from the research that I've, the papers that I've read, they seem to actually be quite localized insofar as they're not like bush dogs. They're not like roaming all over Amazonia, which bush dogs seem to be far more sort of nomadic in that sense. Where short-eared dogs just seem to be extremely wary of any people. They're obviously predated on by big mammals, jaguars and the like, so they're quite skittish. So I don't know if that's one target maybe in the future that it may be like a snow leopard that everyone thought that was basically impossible to see, and maybe with some careful planning and better understanding of their habits, maybe one day we'll see.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. When you moved across in 2017, I said to you, Rob, don't let us Brits down with your language learning skills, because we've got a terrible reputation. And I was lucky enough to spend, as you know, 2 years in South America, and I learned Spanish. And I said to you, do take advantage of this opportunity and throw yourself in there. So bring me up to speed. How have you been getting on with the old language skills?
Yeah, it's the Spanish is much better than when I arrived. That's for sure. I don't know. I think it has been a challenge because we've effectively started a business in a Spanish speaking country, and for the business side of things, I can't lie. I have to say that Claudia's really done the brunt of the conversational work that needs to be done with all manner of sort of different organisations here to get things going. But like on a day-to-day level, my Spanish I'd say is pretty okay. It's sort of it's getting there. It's a lot better than just ordering a beer, let's say.
Good stuff. On the subject of beer, Rob, what's your favourite Colombian beer?
I just drink Club Colombia. It's like the beer that you find all over the country, and there's like a red one, a ruby type beer, a blonde one, and a black one, and they're all pretty good, and you can just about get them everywhere. So that's pretty standard for me. Nothing too fancy.
Listen, salsa, merengue, or you not seen dead on a Colombian dance floor?
The latter.
We're in the club.
Not much of a dancer. Have to get a few more Club Colombians in me.
Yeah. And just lastly, what do you most miss about the UK, apart from friends and family?
I spent the last few years of obviously working at Naturetrek, and very much like living in Hampshire. I thought it was a wonderful place. The walks and just getting down to the New Forest and the coast there, that was great. I miss a roast dinner. That obviously brings friends and family into the fray, but I love a roast dinner, which I've sort of recreated out here. I cooked Christmas dinner, which went quite well for a few. There was an Italian at the table who seemed to enjoy the food, so I was quite happy about that. What else? Yeah, just a pint down the pub. Just the simple stuff, really. The stuff that everyone misses right now in lockdown, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I think this period of reflection is really, everyone's kind of had time to really think, what is important in life, and it's the simple stuff, really, I think.
Yeah. That's brilliant, Rob. Fantastic to catch up. I wish you and Clau all the very best. I can't say to you when we'll be operating tours again, although we've got various eyes on news outlets and travel industry updates. Let's just hope you're in business as soon as possible. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves. It's been great to catch up. Thanks, Andy. Yeah, thank you very much, and it's been great to catch up. And all my best to the team at Naturetrek. Look forward to hopefully working again and getting folk over here. And great stuff. It's been it'll be good when that happens. Cheers, Andy. Yeah, thanks very much.
To join us on a tour in Colombia, you can view our tours on our website, the link to which is displayed on your screen now. And to listen to more podcasts, just go to our podcast webpage. Thanks for listening.